Admiral Kethvar of the Galactic Coalition stood before the massive holographic display in the command center of the orbital station above Proxima 7. The blue-skinned Altarians' four eyes tracked the movement of enemy vessels across the three-dimensional battlefield projection. Red dots, representing the Vorthan Empire's fleet, outnumbered their own forces 3-1. Admiral, the Vorthan advance fleet has broken through our outer defensive perimeter, reported Commander Zalani, her tentacles dancing nervously across her control console. They'll reach the civilian evacuation ships within 2 hours. Kethvar's mandibles clicked in frustration. The Vorthan Empire had been expanding aggressively across this sector for months, conquering system after system with their advanced technology and ruthless tactics. Their ships were faster, their weapons more powerful, and their tactics more brutal than anything the Coalition had faced before. "What's the status on reinforcements?" Kethvar asked, though he already knew the answer would disappoint him. "The nearest Coalition fleet is 4 days away, sir. The Terran vessels are still 3 days out." Zalani's voice carried the weight of impending doom. The mention of Terran ships sparked a mixture of curiosity and skepticism among the bridge crew. Humans had only joined the Galactic Coalition 18 months ago, after their homeworld was discovered by a Coalition survey team. The young species had impressed everyone with their rapid technological advancement and their fierce determination, but they were still considered newcomers by most of the galaxy's established civilizations. "Sir, incoming transmission from the evacuation fleet," announced Lieutenant Vex, his scaled fingers working quickly across his communication console. The hologram shifted to show Captain Moran of the civilian transport vessel Safe Harbor. The elderly Centauri woman's face was tight with worry. "Admiral Kethvar, we've loaded as many civilians as possible, but our ships are slow and defenseless. If the Vorthans break through your lines..." "We understand the situation, Captain. Begin your retreat immediately. We'll hold them as long as possible." "Thank you, Admiral. May the stars guide you safely home." The transmission ended, leaving the command center in tense silence. Every being present understood the mathematics of their situation. The Coalition fleet could delay the Vorthans, perhaps even inflict some damage, but ultimately they would be overwhelmed. The only question was how long they could hold the line. "Admiral," called out Ensign Yorth from the sensor station, "I'm detecting something unusual. There's a massive energy signature approaching from the outer system." It's enormous, sir." Kethvar moved to the sensor station, studying the readings with growing bewilderment. The energy signature was indeed massive, larger than anything in their database. More puzzling, it seemed to be moving at an impossible speed, far exceeding the theoretical limits of known propulsion systems. "Could it be a Vorthan superweapon?" Commander Zalani asked, her voice barely concealing her fear. "The energy pattern doesn't match Vorthan technology," Yorth replied, his young face creased with concentration. "Actually, it doesn't match any known technology in our databases." "Put on the main display," Kethvar ordered. The hologram shifted again, zooming out to show the entire star system. At the very edge of their sensor's range, a single contact was approaching at tremendous velocity. As they watched, the contact began to decelerate, shedding speed in a way that should have torn apart any known vessel from the gravitational forces involved. "Sir, I'm getting clearer readings now. The vessel is massive, length approximately 15 kilometers, width 4 kilometers. The power output readings are..." Yorth paused, double-checking his instruments. "Sir, the power output is greater than our entire fleet combined." A chill ran through the command center. Whatever was approaching them possessed technology far beyond anything the Coalition had ever encountered. In their current desperate situation, this unknown vessel could represent either salvation or complete annihilation. "Attempt to establish communication," Kethvar ordered. "All frequencies." Lieutenant Vex worked frantically at his console. "No response, sir. The vessel is maintaining complete communication silence." "Weapons status on the unknown contact." "Scanning now, sir." Yorth's four eyes widened in amazement. "Admiral, I'm detecting weapon systems unlike anything in our database. The energy signatures suggest weapons capable of destroying entire fleets. But, sir, there's something else. The vessel's design. It's showing some similarities to Terran architecture. Terran. Kethvar's mandibles clicked in confusion. That's impossible. Humans have only been spacefaring for a few centuries. They don't possess technology like this. Nevertheless, sir, the hull configuration and several design elements are definitely consistent with Terran engineering principles. The mysterious vessel continued its approach, now clearly visible on their long-range sensors. Its design was indeed reminiscent of human spacecraft, but scaled up to proportions that seemed impossible. The hull was sleek and predatory, covered in what appeared to be advanced armor plating. Weapon systems dotted its surface like the scales of some enormous spaceborne predator. Admiral, the Vorthan fleet has detected the approaching vessel, Commander Zalani reported. They're changing formation. It looks like they're preparing to engage the unknown contact. Kethvar watched as the Vorthan fleet, moments before an unstoppable force bearing down on the coalition defenders, suddenly found themselves faced with an even greater mystery. The enemy ships were repositioning themselves, bringing their most powerful weapons to bear on the approaching giant. Sir, incoming transmission, Lieutenant Vex announced suddenly. It's from the unknown vessel. Put it through. The holographic display flickered, and suddenly they were looking at a human face. The man appeared to be in his 50s, with gray-streaked hair and eyes that held the weight of countless battles. He wore what appeared to be a military uniform unlike any Terran design they had seen before. Most unsettling of all, there seemed to be something ancient about him, as if he had been fighting wars since before most of their civilizations had achieved spaceflight. Coalition forces. This is Captain Marcus Chun of the Terran vessel Retribution. We have been monitoring your situation. Stand down and withdraw to a safe distance. We will handle the Vorthan threat. The transmission ended before anyone could respond, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Admiral, Ensign Yorith called out, his voice filled with awe. The vessel has just increased speed again. It's heading directly for the Vorthan fleet. Kethvar stared at the tactical display, watching as the single massive human vessel charged toward an entire enemy fleet. The situation had suddenly become even more impossible to comprehend. A single ship, regardless of its size, attempting to engage an entire fleet was tactical suicide. Yet something in Captain Chen's voice had suggested absolute confidence. Sir, the Vorthans are opening fire, Commander Zalani reported. The display showed hundreds of energy beams and missile trails racing toward the approaching human vessel. The Vorthan Empire's weapons were among the most advanced in known space, capable of reducing entire cities to ash in moments. Impact in 3, 2, 1. The weapon struck the human vessel's shields in a spectacular display of light and energy. For a moment, the entire ship disappeared behind a ball of brilliant plasma and electromagnetic discharge. When the light faded, Kethvar expected to see debris and the shattered remains of an overly ambitious human captain. Instead, the Retribution emerged from the weapon's barrage completely unharmed. Its shields had absorbed the entire assault from the Vorthan fleet without showing so much as a flicker. Impossible, Zidane whispered. No ship could withstand that much firepower. The vessel is returning fire, Yorith announced. What happened next would forever change how the galaxy viewed human military capability. The Retribution opened fire with weapons that defied every known principle of naval warfare. Beams of pure energy, each one brighter than a small star, reached out across space to touch the Vorthan vessels. Where they struck, enemy ships didn't just explode. They simply ceased to exist, transformed into clouds of elementary particles in milliseconds. In less than 30 seconds, the human vessel had destroyed over half the Vorthan fleet. The remaining enemy ships began a desperate retreat, their formation broken and their morale shattered. Sir, incoming transmission from Captain Chen again, Lieutenant Vex reported. Put him through. The human captain appeared once more, his expression unchanged despite the incredible display of power his ship had just demonstrated. Coalition forces, the immediate threat has been neutralized. However, this Vorthan fleet was merely the advance guard. The main enemy force will arrive within 72 hours. I suggest you use this time to complete your evacuation and prepare your defenses. Captain Chun, Kethvar found his voice at last. May I ask what ship you command? No vessel in the Terran fleet possesses this level of capability. For the first time, something resembling a smile crossed the human captain's features. The Retribution is not part of the current Terran fleet, Admiral. We've been away for quite some time. Away? How long? 357 years, 4 months, and 16 days. The communication ended, leaving the Coalition command staff staring at each other in disbelief. 357 years meant this ship had been launched before humans had even achieved faster-than-light travel, according to all known records. Admiral, Commander Zalani said slowly, if that's true, then this vessel was built with technology that shouldn't exist. The humans were barely capable of interplanetary flight 3 centuries ago. And yet, Kethvar replied, gesturing toward the tactical display where the Retribution hung in space like a sleeping giant. There it is. Sir, we're receiving a priority message from Coalition Command, Lieutenant Vex announced. It's marked as Historical Classification Level 7. Level 7 classifications were reserved for the most sensitive information in the Coalition database. Kethvar accepted the transmission and found himself looking at the face of High Chancellor Vexterra, the Galactic Coalition Supreme Leader. Admiral Kethvar, you are hereby ordered to maintain absolute secrecy regarding the vessel that just appeared in your system. What you have witnessed must not be discussed outside of your immediate command staff until further notice. We are transmitting all available information on what our historians have discovered about this ship. The data package that followed contained information that would have seemed like fantasy if they hadn't just witnessed its truth. According to the historical records, 360 years ago, Earth had secretly launched a single experimental vessel on a long-range mission. The project had been so classified that most of the human government hadn't known about it. The ship had been designated as a deep space exploration vessel, but the technical specifications suggested something far more military in nature. Most disturbing of all, the records indicated that the ship's crew had volunteered for a one-way mission. They had been placed in advanced stasis systems and sent into the unknown with orders to explore the deepest regions of space and report back on any threats to humanity they discovered. Sir, Yorith said quietly, if this information is correct, then that ship has been traveling through space for over 3 centuries. The technology they possessed, where could they have gotten it? Kethvar studied the tactical display, watching as the massive human vessel began moving away from the battlefield. Its destination appeared to be the outer system, where it would presumably wait for the main Vorthan force to arrive. I don't know, Ensign, but I have a feeling we're about to learn that there's far more to human history than any of us realized. The Retribution had appeared from the darkness between the stars like something out of legend. But legends, Kethvar was beginning to understand, had a way of becoming reality when humanity was involved. The question now was whether this legendary vessel would prove to be their salvation or something even more dangerous than the enemy they faced. As the Coalition fleet began its tactical withdrawal, every sensor remained focused on the mysterious human warship. Whatever secrets it held, whatever technology it possessed, and whatever its true mission had been, the Retribution represented a new chapter in galactic history. A chapter written in the language of impossible weapons and crews that had voluntarily exiled themselves to the darkness between stars for the sake of protecting their species. The Vorthans had thought they were facing a young, inexperienced civilization when they threatened human space. They were about to learn that humanity's true guardians had been waiting in the dark for centuries, and their patience had finally run out. Captain Marcus Chin stood on the bridge of the Retribution, his weathered hands clasped behind his back as he stared out at the star-filled void. The bridge itself was a marvel of technology that seemed to blend the familiar with the impossible. Human design principles were evident in every detail, yet the advanced materials and systems would have been pure science fiction to the Earth that had built this ship centuries ago. "Captain, all systems are functioning at optimal parameters," reported Commander Sarah Mills, his first officer. Like the rest of the crew, she appeared to be in her prime despite the centuries that had passed since their departure from Earth. The advanced stasis technology had preserved them perfectly, though their minds carried the accumulated experience of their long journey through the cosmos. "What's our status on the civilian evacuation, Jenkins?" Chun asked, turning to his tactical officer. Lieutenant Commander David Jenkins consulted his advanced holographic displays. Unlike the Coalition's technology, the Retribution's systems seemed to operate on principles that bent reality itself. "The evacuation fleet is safely beyond the system's outer perimeter, Captain. Coalition forces have withdrawn to defensive positions around the fourth planet. They're maintaining sensor watch, but keeping their distance as ordered." Chun nodded approvingly. The Coalition forces were wise to maintain their distance. What was about to unfold would challenge everything they thought they knew about warfare and technology. "Sir," called out Ensign Rebecca Torres from the communications station, "we're receiving multiple transmissions from Coalition Command. They're requesting detailed information about our ship, our mission, and our capabilities." Standard response, Torres. "Tell them we'll provide a full briefing after the current threat has been eliminated." "Aye, sir." Chun moved to the Central Command chair, a sophisticated piece of technology that interfaced directly with his nervous system, allowing him to control the ship's systems with thought alone. As he settled into the chair, streams of information flowed directly into his consciousness, giving him complete awareness of every system aboard the massive vessel. The Retribution was more than just a warship. It was the culmination of humanity's greatest scientific achievements, built in absolute secrecy by a coalition of Earth's most brilliant minds. The technology incorporated into its construction had come from sources that most of humanity still didn't know existed. "Dr. Kowalski to the bridge," Chun announced through the ship's internal communication system. Moments later, the bridge's rear doors opened to admit a woman who appeared to be in her 30s, though her eyes held the weight of centuries. Dr. Elena Kowalski had been Earth's leading xenotechnology specialist when the Retribution launched, and her expertise had only grown during their long journey. "Captain, I assume you want a full briefing for the crew before we engage the main Vorthan force?" "That's correct, Doctor. It's been a long time since we've faced a conventional enemy fleet. I want everyone to understand what we're dealing with." Dr. Kowalski moved to the central holographic projector, her fingers dancing across control surfaces that materialized at her touch. The display showed detailed schematics of Vorthan vessels, their tactical capabilities, and their known weaknesses. "The Vorthan Empire represents a traditional expanding civilization," she began, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had studied countless alien cultures. "Their technology is approximately 1,500 years more advanced than Earth's technology was when we departed, but it's still based on conventional principles. Plasma weapons, particle shields, fusion reactors, and standard faster-than-light drives." Commander Mills leaned forward in her chair. "Conventional by whose standards, Doctor?" "By ours," Dr. Kowalski replied with a slight smile. "The technology we encountered during our journey through the deep dark has changed our perspective considerably. The Vorthans are dangerous to conventional forces, but their weapons and defenses are based on principles we mastered centuries ago." Chun stood and approached the hologram, studying the tactical data. "What about their numbers?" "Intelligence reports suggest the main force consists of over 2,000 vessels. Numbers become irrelevant when there's a sufficient technological gap, Captain. The energy output of our main weapons exceeds the total power generation capability of their entire fleet by several orders of magnitude." Lieutenant Commander Jenkins looked up from his tactical station. "Sir, if I may ask, where exactly did we encounter this advanced technology? The mission briefings only covered our official objectives." Chun exchanged a glance with Dr. Kowalski. The question touched on classified information that had been kept secret, even from most of the crew. The Retribution's official mission had been deep space exploration and threat assessment, but their true purpose had been far more specific. 3 centuries ago, Chun began slowly. Earth's most advanced monitoring systems detected artificial signals from the galactic core. The signals suggested the presence of an ancient civilization with technology far beyond our understanding. Our mission was to investigate these signals and determine whether they represented a threat to humanity. The bridge crew listened in fascinated silence. This was information that none of them had possessed before their departure from Earth. What we found, Dr. Kowalski continued, was the remnants of a civilization that had transcended physical existence millions of years ago. They had left behind automated systems designed to evaluate younger races and provide them with advanced technology if they proved worthy. The tests, Commander Mills said suddenly, understanding dawning in her voice. All those encounters we had during our journey. The spatial anomalies, the impossible challenges, the situations where our survival depended on making the right moral choices. Exactly, Chun confirmed. We were being evaluated by systems created by beings whose understanding of the universe makes our current technology seem primitive by comparison. Each test we passed earned us access to more advanced systems and knowledge. That explains the ship's current capabilities, Jenkins said, his voice filled with awe. When we left Earth, the Retribution was just an advanced experimental vessel. But now it incorporates technology from a post-scarcity civilization that ruled the galaxy when Earth's sun was young, Dr. Kowalski finished. Our weapons can manipulate matter at the quantum level. Our shields operate in dimensions that most species haven't discovered yet. Our power source draws energy directly from quantum fluctuations in space-time itself. Ensign Torres looked up from her communications console. Sir, does this mean we're supposed to be some kind of guardians for Earth? Chun considered the question carefully. It touched on the deepest purpose of their mission. The reason why they had volunteered for what was essentially permanent exile from the world they had sworn to protect. In a sense, yes. The ancient civilization's systems determined that humanity possessed the potential for greatness, but also the capacity for tremendous destruction. Our role was to serve as a failsafe, a guardian force that would remain hidden until Earth truly needed protection from threats it couldn't handle alone. And the Vorthan Empire represents such a threat. Not directly to Earth, Dr. Kowalski replied, but their expansion pattern would eventually bring them into conflict with human space. The Coalition's defeat here would accelerate that timeline considerably. Sir, Lieutenant Commander Jenkins interrupted. Sensors are detecting massive energy signatures approaching from the outer system. The main Vorthan force has arrived. The bridge's main display shifted to show long-range sensor readings. The approaching enemy fleet was enormous. Over 2,000 vessels of various sizes, from small destroyers to massive dreadnoughts that rivaled cities in size. Their formation was tight and professional, designed to overwhelm any defensive force through sheer, overwhelming firepower. Formation analysis? Chun requested. Standard Vorthan battle doctrine, Jenkins replied. Heavy dreadnoughts in the center, supported by carrier groups and destroyer screens. They're planning to punch through the Coalition's defensive lines with brute force, then overwhelm the evacuation fleet before it can escape to hyperspace. Time until they reach engagement range. 6 hours at their current velocity, Captain. Chun settled back into his command chair, feeling the ship's systems respond to his presence. Around him, the bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency, each of them veterans of countless encounters with dangers that the rest of the galaxy couldn't imagine. Dr. Kowalski, I want a full power-up sequence initiated. All weapons systems, defensive grids, and support systems at maximum readiness. Understood, Captain. Commander Mills, signal the crew. All hands to battle stations. Aye, sir. As the alert klaxons began to sound throughout the ship, Chun felt the familiar sensation of the Retribution awakening to its full potential. Systems that had been running on minimal power suddenly surged to life, drawing energy from sources that existed outside normal space-time. The ship's hull began to emit a faint glow as exotic materials activated, preparing to face weapons that could destroy planets. "Captain," Torres reported, "we're receiving a transmission from Admiral Kethvar aboard the Coalition flagship." "Put him through." The Altarian admiral appeared on the bridge's communication screen, his 4 eyes wide with concern. "Captain Shun, our sensors are detecting the approaching Vorthan fleet. Their numbers are even greater than intelligence estimated. Are you certain you don't want Coalition support? We could provide covering fire, or at least serve as a distraction." Chen appreciated the admiral's courage, but involving conventional forces in what was about to unfold would only result in unnecessary casualties. "Thank you for the offer, Admiral, but this is something we need to handle alone. Please maintain your current position and prepare to assist with post-battle cleanup operations." "Post-battle cleanup?" "Captain, you're facing an entire fleet with a single vessel, regardless of its size." "Admiral," Chen said quietly, "in approximately 6 hours, you're going to understand why humanity was considered worthy of advanced guardianship. I suggest you have your historians ready to document what they observe." The transmission ended, leaving the Retribution's bridge in focused silence. Each crew member understood their role in what was about to unfold. They had spent centuries preparing for this moment, training with weapons and systems that redefined the very nature of warfare. "Sir," Dr. Kowalski reported, "all systems are now at full operational status. The quantum weapons matrix is online, dimensional shields are at maximum efficiency, and the temporal defense grid is ready for activation." "Excellent. Jenkins, I want a complete tactical analysis of the enemy fleet. Identify command vessels, support structures, and any unique capabilities." "Already working on it, sir." The fleet appears to be under the command of War Master Vex Thran, one of the Vorthan Empire's most experienced fleet commanders. His flagship is a new class of super dreadnought we haven't encountered before, approximately 8 kilometers long with weapons capable of destroying moons. "Impressive by conventional standards," Commander Mills observed. "Should we target the command vessel first?" Chun considered the tactical options available to them. The Retribution possessed weapon systems that could eliminate the entire enemy fleet in a matter of minutes, but the demonstration needed to be carefully orchestrated. This battle would be observed by every major power in the galaxy, and the message it sent would shape humanity's position in galactic politics for generations to come. "No, we'll engage the fleet in a specific sequence. First, we'll eliminate their long-range weapons platforms to prevent them from threatening the Coalition forces or civilian ships. Then, we'll neutralize their command and control capabilities. Finally, we'll give the remainder an opportunity to surrender before completing our mission." "Sir," Torres interjected, "we're receiving transmissions from the Vorthan fleet. They're demanding our immediate surrender and threatening to execute any survivors if we resist." Chen almost smiled at the irony. 3 centuries ago, such threats would have terrified any human commander. Now, facing weapons that could reshape reality itself, the Vorthan's ultimatum seemed almost quaint. "No response, Torres. Let our actions speak for themselves." "Contact in 5 hours and 47 minutes, Jenkins reported. "The enemy fleet is maintaining formation and approach vector. They don't appear to consider us a significant threat. They're about to learn otherwise," Dr. Kowalski said grimly. "Captain, should we prepare the quantum torpedoes?" "Not yet. We'll start with conventional weapons and escalate as necessary. I want the galaxy to understand the full scope of what we're capable of." As the massive enemy fleet continued its approach, the Retribution hung in space like a patient predator. Its crew, veterans of encounters with beings and technologies that existed beyond normal reality, prepared for a battle that would redefine the balance of power in the galaxy. The Vorthan Empire had built their reputation on overwhelming force and technological superiority. They were about to discover that there were levels of advancement they had never imagined, and that humanity's true guardians have been watching from the darkness, waiting for their moment to act. The countdown to engagement continued, each passing minute bringing them closer to a demonstration of power that would echo across the galaxy for generations to come. War Master Vex Thran stood in the command center of his flagship, the Eternal Conquest, his massive form radiating the confidence that had carried him to victory in 100 different star systems. The Vorthan was nearly 3 meters tall, his body covered in the chitinous plates that marked his species as natural predators. His 4 arms moved constantly across different control surfaces, coordinating the movements of his vast fleet with practiced efficiency. Fleet status report, he commanded, his voice carrying the authority of absolute power. All vessels maintaining formation, War Master, replied his tactical coordinator, a smaller Vorthan whose scarred shell spoke of years of combat experience. 2,300 vessels ready for combat operations. Long-range sensors confirm the Coalition fleet has withdrawn beyond the 4th planet. No significant resistance anticipated. Vex Thran's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. The Coalition had proven to be disappointingly weak opponents throughout this campaign. Their technology was adequate, their tactics predictable, and their resolve questionable. This system would fall like all the others, adding another conquered world to the ever-expanding Vorthan Empire. And the unknown vessel, still maintaining position at the edge of the system, War Master. Analysis indicates it's a single ship of unknown configuration. Length approximately 15 kilometers, but showing energy signatures far below what we would expect for a vessel of that size. Probably a civilian evacuation ship or damaged warship, Vex Thran dismissed. If it attempts to interfere, destroy it. War Master, interrupted the communications officer, we've been monitoring transmissions from the Coalition forces. They refer to the unknown vessel as a Terran warship. Records indicate Terrans are a newly discovered species that recently joined the Coalition. Vex Thran's interest was mildly piqued. He had heard reports of this new species called humans, though the intelligence gathered so far had been minimal. From what little they knew, humans were a young race with inferior technology and no significant military achievements. A new species attempting to prove themselves, he mused. How tedious. Signal the vessel and demand its immediate surrender. If they comply, we'll use them for labor. If they resist, understood, War Master. The transmission was sent, carrying the standard Vorthan ultimatum that had preceded the conquest of dozens of worlds. Surrender immediately or face complete annihilation. It was a message that had broken the will of countless civilizations before the first shot was fired. Minutes passed without a response. War Master, the Terran vessel is not responding to our communications, the communications officer reported. Then, they choose death. Target the vessel with a forward weapons array and prepare to fire. Sir, we're still 3 hours from optimal firing range. Should we increase our approach velocity? Vex Thran considered the suggestion. The unknown vessel's position at the system's edge meant it would take time to close to effective weapons range. However, the thought of a single enemy ship delaying his fleet's advance was intolerable. Negative. Maintain current velocity. When we reach range, I want that ship vaporized as an example to any other Coalition forces considering resistance. As the Vorthan fleet continued its relentless advance, sensors throughout the system tracked their movement. Aboard Coalition vessels, frightened crews watched their displays with growing dread. The enemy fleet was a massive force of destruction that had conquered everything in its path. But, aboard the Retribution, the crew prepared for battle with the calm efficiency of veterans who had faced far worse threats in the depths of space. Enemy fleet will be in weapons range in 2 hours and 15 minutes, Lieutenant Commander Jenkins reported from his tactical station. They're maintaining standard formation and haven't detected our true capabilities. Captain Chen nodded, his consciousness fully integrated with the ship's systems. Through quantum sensors that existed partially outside normal space-time, he could perceive every detail of the approaching fleet. Each vessel's structural weaknesses, power distribution patterns, and tactical capabilities were laid bare before his enhanced awareness. Dr. Kowalski, status of our weapons systems. All systems nominal, Captain. The quantum destabilization arrays are charged and ready. Probability manipulation generators are online. The temporal displacement cannons are calibrated for maximum effectiveness. Commander Mills looked up from her station. Sir, should we attempt to contact the enemy commander before engaging? Perhaps demonstrate our capabilities and offer them a chance to withdraw. Chun considered the suggestion. During their centuries of travel, they had encountered many hostile species. Some could be reasoned with once they understood the futility of their aggression. Others, like the Vorthans, viewed any offer of mercy as weakness to be exploited. Negative. The Vorthan Empire has built its expansion on the fear and subjugation of other species. A demonstration of superior force is the only language they understand. Captain, Torres called from communications, we're receiving sensor telemetry from coalition forces. They're tracking the enemy fleet's approach and maintaining detailed records of our engagement. Good. Make sure our actions are clearly documented. This demonstration will need to be shared with every major power in the galaxy. Sir, Jenkins interjected. The enemy fleet is beginning to spread into attack formation. It looks like they're preparing for a simultaneous assault from multiple vectors. The main tactical display showed the Vorthan fleet dispersing into a complex three-dimensional formation designed to overwhelm a defending force through coordinated attacks from multiple angles. It was a sophisticated tactical doctrine that had proven effective against conventional forces throughout their expansion. Classic Vorthan assault pattern, Dr. Kowalski observed. They'll attempt to divide our attention while their heavy dreadnoughts deliver concentrated firepower to specific target zones. Unfortunately for them, Chen replied, they're operating under the assumption that we're bound by the same physical limitations as conventional vessels. The Retribution began to move, its exotic propulsion systems bending space-time around the massive vessel. To external observers, the ship seemed to flow through space like liquid metal, its movements defying the laws of physics that govern normal spacecraft. Captain, we're being scanned by enemy sensors, Torres reported. They're attempting to analyze our defensive capabilities and weapon systems. Let them scan. Their sensors can't detect what they don't understand. The Vorthan scans revealed what appeared to be a large, but conventionally designed warship. The exotic materials that comprised the Retribution's hull appeared as standard armor plating to their sensors. The quantum weapons arrays registered as empty space, and the dimensional shield generators were completely invisible to their detection systems. War Master, the tactical coordinator, reported aboard the Eternal Conquest. Sensor analysis of the enemy vessel is complete. Standard armor configuration, minimal energy signatures, no detectable weapon systems. No weapons. Vextran's mandibles clicked in amusement. Perhaps it truly is just an oversized evacuation ship. This will be even more disappointing than I anticipated. Should we continue with the planned assault formation? No, there's no point in wasting tactical complexity on such a pathetic target. Signal the fleet to resume standard approach. The forward dreadnoughts can destroy this vessel as a training exercise for their gun crews. The Vorthan fleet began to consolidate back into a more compact formation, their commanders now viewing the engagement as a minor target practice rather than a serious battle. This casual arrogance was exactly what Chun had expected from species that had grown accustomed to easy victories. Enemy fleet has simplified their formation, Jenkins observed. They're treating us as a minimal threat. Perfect. Dr. Kowalski, bring the quantum manipulation matrix online. Target their heavy weapons platforms first. Matrix online, Captain. I'm detecting 17 heavy weapons platforms among their fleet. Quantum torpedoes are locked and ready. Fire. What happened next would be discussed by military strategists throughout the galaxy for generations to come. The Retribution fired a salvo of weapons that existed partially outside normal reality. The quantum torpedoes appear to travel at conventional speeds, giving the Vorthen fleet's point defense systems time to track and target them. The enemy's defensive fire reached out to intercept the incoming weapons, energy beams, and interceptor missiles filling space with brilliant flashes of light. To the Vorthen's sensors, their defensive fire connected successfully, destroying the incoming torpedoes in spectacular explosions. But the torpedoes that were destroyed were merely quantum shadows, probability echoes of the real weapons. The actual torpedoes existed in a state of quantum superposition, simultaneously present and absent until the moment of impact collapsed their wave functions into reality. 17 Vorthen heavy weapons platforms suddenly found themselves struck by weapons that had passed through their defenses as if they didn't exist. The quantum warheads didn't simply explode, they destabilized the fundamental forces holding matter together, causing each target vessel to collapse into a singularity before evaporating in a burst of exotic radiation. 17 enemy vessels destroyed, Jenkins reported with clinical precision. No survivors detected. Aboard the Eternal Conquest, chaos erupted on the command deck. War Master, we've lost 17 vessels, the tactical coordinator screamed, his composure finally cracking. The heavy weapons platforms have been destroyed. Impossible. Vexthran roared. Our point defense systems intercepted those missiles. The sensor logs confirm successful interception, but the targets are gone. Sir, the energy signature from those explosions, they're unlike anything in our database. Vexthran stared at the tactical display, watching as 17 indicators that had represented his most powerful warships simply vanished. The implications were staggering. Either their sensors had completely failed, or they were facing technology that operated on principles beyond their understanding. All vessels, emergency evasive maneuvers. Bring the fleet to maximum alert status. The Vorthen formation began to scatter as individual commanders attempted to avoid whatever impossible weapon had destroyed their comrades. Ships that had been advancing in perfect formation moments before now twisted and weaved through space in desperate patterns designed to confuse targeting systems. Captain, Commander Mills observed, the enemy fleet is beginning evasive maneuvers. Should we continue the engagement? Chun watched the tactical display as over 2,000 enemy vessels attempted to evade weapons they couldn't understand. Their fear was palpable, transmitted in the frantic communications between their ships and the increasingly erratic nature of their movements. Dr. Kowalski, target their command and control vessels next. Use the probability manipulation weapons. Targeting enemy command ships. Probability weapons charged and ready. The second salvo was even more devastating than the first. Instead of visible projectiles, the Retribution fired weapons that altered the fundamental laws of chance and causality. Throughout the enemy fleet, command vessels suddenly experienced catastrophic systems failures as quantum uncertainty collapsed in their favor. Fusion reactors that had operated perfectly for decades suddenly achieved critical cascade failures. Navigation systems calculated courses that led directly into the gravitational fields of nearby planets. Weapons systems overloaded and exploded, taking their host vessels with them. To external observers, it appeared as if the enemy fleet was destroying itself through an impossible series of accidents and malfunctions. But the pattern was too perfect, too coordinated to be anything other than the result of directed action. 34 additional enemy vessels destroyed, Jenkins reported. Enemy fleet cohesion is breaking down. Multiple vessels are attempting to retreat. Let them run, Chin decided. We've made our point. But War Master Vexthran was not ready to accept defeat. Aboard the Eternal Conquest, he raged against the impossible circumstances that had decimated his fleet. All remaining vessels, focus fire on the enemy ship. Maximum firepower, all weapons. The surviving Vorthen vessels turned their combined firepower toward the Retribution, unleashing a barrage that could have reduced a small moon to ash. Thousands of energy beams and missile trails reached across space toward the lone human vessel. Incoming fire, Jenkins announced calmly. Estimated time to impact, 43 seconds. Dimensional shields to full defensive configuration, Chun ordered. The Retribution's shields operated on principles that most species had never discovered. Instead of simply absorbing or deflecting incoming energy, they shifted the ship partially out of normal space-time. The enemy weapons passed through the space where the ship appeared to be, but found only empty vacuum. The massive barrage struck nothing, dispersing harmlessly into space while the Retribution remained completely unharmed. No damage to any ship systems, Dr. Kowalski reported. Shields are operating at normal efficiency. The demonstration was complete. A single human vessel had engaged an entire enemy fleet, destroyed over 50 ships without taking any damage, and rendered the survivors' most powerful weapons completely ineffective. But Chen knew that the real test was still to come. The Vorthans were a proud and aggressive species who would never accept defeat until they understood the full scope of what they faced. The next phase of the battle would require a demonstration that left no doubt about the futility of continued resistance. The war between conventional military doctrine and technology that transcended physical reality was about to reach its climax. The silence that followed the failed Vorthan bombardment was deafening. Aboard ships throughout the enemy fleet, warriors who had never known defeat stared at their instruments in disbelief. Their most powerful weapons had simply passed through their target as if it didn't exist. War Master Vexthran's four arms trembled with rage as he processed the impossible situation. His fleet, the pride of the Vorthan Empire, had been reduced to helplessness by a single enemy vessel using technology that defied every known law of warfare. Damage assessment, he bellowed to his bridge crew. 51 vessels lost, War Master, his tactical coordinator reported, his voice barely steady. The remaining fleet is intact but demoralized. Many captains are requesting permission to withdraw. Withdraw. Vexthran's voice carried the promise of death. The Vorthan Empire does not retreat. Signal all vessels to prepare for ramming speed. If our weapons cannot touch this demon ship, we'll destroy it through physical impact. The order transmitted throughout the fleet caused a mixture of desperation and resignation among the surviving crews. Ramming attacks were considered the last resort of a commander who had lost all other options. But faced with an enemy that seemed to exist outside the normal rules of reality, conventional tactics had become meaningless. War Master, the communications officer interrupted, "We're receiving a transmission from the enemy vessel." "Put it through." Captain Chen appeared on the command screen, his expression calm, but carrying an unmistakable authority that made even Vexthran pause. When the human spoke, his voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. "War Master Vexthran of the Vorthan Empire, I am Captain Marcus Chun of the Terran vessel Retribution. You have entered this system with the intent to conquer and subjugate its inhabitants. This aggression ends now." "Human," Vexthran spat, his mandibles clicking with fury. "Your tricks may have surprised my fleet, but the Vorthan Empire has conquered 100 worlds. We will not be stopped by alien sorcery. What you call sorcery is simply technology advanced beyond your current understanding. I'm offering you one opportunity to withdraw your forces and return to Vorthan space. If you refuse, I will demonstrate why humanity was chosen as a guardian species." "Guardian species?" Vexthran laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through his bridge. "You're nothing but primitives who discovered some ancient technology. We've studied your pathetic civilization, human. You've barely achieved faster-than-light travel." Chen's expression remained unchanged, but something in his eyes suggested depths of experience that Vexthran couldn't comprehend. "The humans you've studied represent our civilization's public face, War Master. But some of us have traveled much further than your intelligence services realize. Enough words. All vessels, ramming speed. Destroy that ship." The transmission ended as nearly 2,000 Vorthan vessels began accelerating directly toward the Retribution. The sight was awesome and terrible, a wall of armored death charging through space with the fury of a species that had never accepted defeat. Aboard the Retribution, the crew watched the approaching fleet with professional calm. They had faced charges by entities that could reshape solar systems and survived encounters with beings that existed in dimensions beyond normal space-time. An enemy fleet, regardless of its size, was merely another tactical problem to solve. Enemy fleet accelerating to ramming speed, Lieutenant Commander Jenkins reported. Impact in approximately 14 minutes at current velocity. Captain, Commander Mills said quietly, they're past the point of reason. Should we eliminate the fleet entirely? Chun considered the question carefully. The Vorthans were aggressive and ruthless, but they were also a major galactic power with millions of worlds under their control. Completely destroying this fleet would send a clear message, but it might also trigger a larger conflict that could destabilize the entire galactic community. Dr. Kowalski, do we have any non-lethal options for stopping a charging fleet? Several, Captain. We could use temporal displacement to freeze them in time, quantum entanglement to lock their drives in a feedback loop, or dimensional phasing to redirect them into empty space. The temporal option sounds appropriate. Freeze the fleet in place and give them time to reconsider their position. Understood, Captain. Temporal manipulation systems coming online. The Retribution's most exotic weapons system began to charge, drawing power from sources that existed outside normal causality. The temporal displacement cannon was technology that most civilizations would consider impossible even in theory. It allowed the manipulation of time flow within localized regions of space, effectively removing targets from the timeline until the weapon's effects were reversed. Weapon charged and ready, Captain. Fire. What happened next redefined the very concept of naval warfare for every observer in the system. The Retribution fired a beam of crystallized time itself, a weapon that struck its targets not with energy or matter, but with altered causality. The beam swept across the charging Vorthan fleet like a wave of liquid crystal, and wherever it touched, enemy vessels simply stopped. Not slowed, not disabled, completely frozen in time, as if they had become three-dimensional photographs suspended in space. Over 1,800 Vorthan warships hung motionless in the void, their crews experiencing the last moment before the temporal weapon struck them in an endless loop. To external observers, the fleet had become a massive sculpture of metal and ceramic, beautiful and terrible in its absolute stillness. Only a handful of vessels at the fleet's rear had escaped the weapon's effect, including War Master Vex Thran's flagship. These survivors found themselves staring at their own fleet, transformed into a monument to the futility of challenging technology that transcended natural law. Temporal displacement successful, Dr. Kowalski reported. 1,837 enemy vessels removed from the timeline. Effects are stable and reversible. Outstanding. Open a channel to the surviving enemy vessels. Channel open, Captain. Chen's image appeared on every surviving Vorthan bridge, his expression carrying a weight of authority that made even War Master Vex Thran fall silent. As you can see, your fleet has been removed from the timeline. They are not dead, merely suspended in temporal stasis. This condition can be reversed, but only if you meet certain conditions. Vex Thran found his voice, though it carried none of its previous arrogance. What do you want, human? First, you will order the immediate withdrawal of all Vorthan forces from Coalition space. Second, you will establish a permanent ceasefire with the Galactic Coalition and enter into formal peace negotiations. Third, you will release all prisoners of war currently held in Vorthan territory. And if we refuse... Chen's expression remained calm, but the implications of his words were unmistakable. Then, your fleet will remain frozen in time until the heat death of the universe. Additionally, I will be forced to visit the Vorthan Empire directly to ensure that this aggression does not continue. The threat was delivered with such quiet certainty that every Vorthan officer felt a chill of absolute terror. The being they faced commanded technology that could manipulate time itself. If he chose to visit their worlds, no defense they possessed could stop him. War Master, one of his subordinates whispered urgently. Our remaining ships are outnumbered by his temporal weapons. If he can freeze entire fleets, what could he do to our homeworld? Vex Thran stared at the field of frozen ships that had been his mighty fleet. His pride warred with his survival instincts, but the decision was ultimately simple. The Vorthan Empire could rebuild its fleet and find new worlds to conquer. But if this human carried out his threat to visit their homeworld, the Empire itself might cease to exist. I accept your terms, he said finally, the words bitter as poison in his mouth. Excellent. Signal your government immediately and inform them of this new arrangement. As soon as Coalition Command confirms the withdrawal of all Vorthan forces, your fleet will be restored to normal time. And how do we know you'll keep your word? Chun smiled, and for the first time, Vex Thran saw something almost human in the expression. Because, War Master, we don't need to lie to species that we could defeat so easily. Deception is a tool used by the weak. We have moved beyond such limitations. The transmission ended, leaving the surviving Vorthan forces to contemplate their new reality. The most powerful fleet in their empire's history had been neutralized without the loss of a single human life, using weapons that operated on principles they had never imagined. Throughout Coalition space, the engagement was being analyzed by military strategists who couldn't believe their sensor readings. A single vessel had defeated an entire fleet using technology that seemed like magic to conventional understanding. Captain, Commander Mills observed, the Coalition forces are requesting permission to approach and examine the temporal field. Granted, but tell them to maintain a safe distance. We don't want any accidents while the field is active. Sir, Torres added, we're receiving priority communications from every major power in the galaxy. Everyone wants to know what just happened here. Chun considered the broader implications of their actions. The demonstration had been necessary to stop the Vorthan advance, but it had also revealed capabilities that would fundamentally alter the balance of galactic politics. Every civilization would now be forced to reconsider their position relative to humanity. Prepare a general broadcast for transmission to all galactic powers, he decided. It's time the galaxy understood humanity's true position in the cosmic order. Dr. Kowalski, what's the status of our temporal weapon systems? All systems nominal, Captain. We could maintain this field indefinitely if necessary, or expand it to encompass much larger areas. Shin nodded, though his expression carried a weight of responsibility that few beings could understand. The power to manipulate time itself was not something to be used lightly. The ancient civilization that had shared this technology with humanity had done so with the understanding that it would be used wisely and sparingly. The galaxy is about to change in ways that most species can't imagine, he said quietly. The age of conquest through superior firepower is ending. What comes next will depend on how quickly the other powers adapt to this new reality. As the Retribution maintained its position near the temporarily frozen Vorthan fleet, representatives from every major civilization began preparing for journeys to this distant system. What they would learn here would reshape their understanding of technology, power, and humanity's role in the galactic community. The legendary human warship had emerged from the darkness between stars to defend the innocent and protect the peace. But its appearance had also announced the dawn of a new era, one in which the old rules of galactic politics would no longer apply. The demonstration was complete, but the consequences were only beginning to unfold 3 months after the Battle of Proxima 7. The galaxy had transformed in ways that would have seemed impossible before the Retribution's appearance. The massive conference station orbiting the neutral world of Harmony Prime hosted representatives from every major civilization, all gathered to witness an event that would reshape the cosmic political landscape. Admiral Kethvar stood in the observation deck of the Coalition delegation's quarters, watching as ships from dozens of species maintained perfect formation around the station. The sight would have been unthinkable before the temporal weapon demonstration. Traditional enemies now shared space in peaceful coexistence, united by their shared recognition of the new reality that humanity had introduced to the galaxy. "Admiral, the human delegation has arrived," announced Commander Zalani, her tentacles moving with nervous energy across her data pad. Kethvar turned from a window to face his aide. The past 3 months had changed them all. The certainty that had once guided their understanding of galactic politics had been replaced by a profound humility in the face of technologies they couldn't comprehend. "Any word from Captain Chun about the Vorthan fleet?" The temporal field was released 2 weeks ago, as promised. All Vorthan vessels were returned to normal time with their crews unharmed. War Master Vex Thran has reportedly been recalled to the Empire's capital for extensive debriefing. The political ramifications of the Proxima 7 engagement had rippled through every major power structure in the galaxy. The Vorthan Empire, once considered the most aggressive expansionist force in known space, had not only ceased their military operations but had also entered into formal peace negotiations with the coalition. More remarkably, they had done so without any apparent coercion beyond the memory of their frozen fleet. "Sir, there's something else," Zalani continued, her voice carrying a note of uncertainty. "The human delegation isn't arriving in conventional vessels." "What do you mean?" "See for yourself, sir." Kethvar returned to the observation window just as space itself began to shimmer near the conference station. Reality twisted and folded, creating geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. Then, with a sound that somehow reached them despite the vacuum of space, a vessel materialized from what appeared to be empty void. The Retribution hung in space like a monument to impossible technology, its 15-kilometer hull gleaming with materials that seemed to exist partially outside normal perception. But it was not alone. Around it, smaller vessels were appearing through the same reality-bending process. Ships that shared the Retribution's advanced design principles, but were clearly built for different purposes. "How many ships are they bringing?" Kethvar asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know the answer. "Sensors are detecting 12 vessels total, sir. The Retribution and 11 others of various configurations. Some appear to be scientific vessels. Others look like they might be diplomatic craft. Diplomatic craft that can probably reshape reality if necessary," Kethvar muttered. The galaxy had learned to take nothing for granted when dealing with human technology. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from Captain Chun. He's requesting permission to dock with the conference station." "Granted, of course." "And Zalani?" "Make sure our delegation is prepared for whatever we're about to learn." An hour later, the main conference chamber of Harmony Prime Station was filled with representatives from every major galactic civilization. The circular chamber had been designed to promote equality among species, with no single delegation elevated above the others. But today, all eyes were focused on the section reserved for the human representatives. Captain Shin entered the chamber accompanied by a small group of humans whose very presence seemed to alter the atmosphere of the room. They moved with the same quiet confidence that Chan had displayed during the battle, but their equipment and uniforms suggested roles beyond simple military service. "Distinguished delegates," Chin began, his voice carrying easily through the vast chamber without technological amplification. "I am Captain Marcus Chun, speaking on behalf of the Terran Deep Space Guardian Corps. We have come here today to address the questions raised by our intervention at Proxima 7 and to establish a new framework for galactic peace." A murmur ran through the assembled delegates. The Terran Deep Space Guardian Corps was not an organization that existed in any public records of human civilization. High Chancellor Vextera of the Galactic Coalition leaned forward in her seat. "Captain Chun, our records indicate no such organization exists within the Terran government. Could you clarify your relationship to Earth's official representatives?" Chin smiled slightly, the expression carrying depths of experience that made several delegates uncomfortable. "Honored Chancellor, the Guardian Corps operates independently of Earth's civilian government. though we maintain communication with them when necessary. Our mission predates the current Terran administration by several centuries. Centuries? The question came from Ambassador Thexlon of the Andromedian Federation, his crystalline form resonating with harmonic confusion. Captain, our first contact with humanity occurred only 18 months ago. How can your organization predate that by centuries? Because, Ambassador, humanity has been traveling the deep dark between galaxies far longer than most civilizations realize. The Earth that joined your coalition represents our species' home and primary population, but we are not their only representatives among the stars. Dr. Elena Kowalski stepped forward, carrying a device that projected a three-dimensional map of local galactic space. Honored delegates, what we're about to share with you will require a fundamental revision of your understanding of human history and capabilities. The map that appeared showed not just the local spiral arm of the galaxy, but regions extending far beyond the boundaries of known space. Marked throughout the display were indicators showing human presence in areas that no coalition vessel had ever reached. 360 years ago, Dr. Kowalski continued, Earth launched multiple deep space missions designed to explore the galaxy's most remote regions and establish contact with advanced civilizations. These missions were classified at the highest levels, unknown even to most of Earth's government. The silence in the chamber was absolute. The implications of what they were hearing challenged everything the galaxy believed about human capabilities and origins. The crews of these missions, Chen continued, volunteered for permanent exile from Earth in order to protect our homeworld from threats it couldn't handle alone. We have spent the intervening centuries exploring regions of space that most species consider impossible to reach, learning from civilizations that transcended physical existence millions of years ago. War Master Vexthran, who had been granted a place in the proceedings despite his recent defeat, rose slowly from his seat. Captain Chun, are you claiming that humans possess technology superior to all known civilizations? Not superior, War Master. Different. The beings we encounter during our journey through the deep dark don't judge species by their technological advancement alone. They evaluate potential, wisdom, and the capacity for responsible use of power. And they found humanity worthy of their gifts. The question came from Archon Mordin of the Hegemony, his mechanical voice carrying skeptical undertones. Chen's expression became more serious. They found certain humans capable of understanding the responsibility that comes with transcendent technology. The Guardian Corps exists to ensure that power is used only when necessary, and only for the protection of innocent life. A new voice entered the discussion as another human stepped forward. This woman appeared younger than Chun, but her eyes carried the same weight of ancient experience. My name is Dr. Sarah Martinez, xenoarchaeologist and Guardian Corps historical specialist. The technology you witnessed at Proxima 7 represents only a fraction of our capabilities. We possess defensive systems that could protect entire star systems, weapons that could end galactic conflicts in minutes, and research facilities that exist in dimensions beyond normal space-time. Then, why reveal yourselves now? Asked Chancellor Vextera. If you've been operating in secret for centuries, what changed? Chen's expression grew grave. Because the galaxy is approaching a critical juncture. Our long-range surveys have detected evidence of threats that conventional military forces cannot handle. The Vorthan expansion was merely a symptom of larger destabilizations that are beginning to manifest throughout known space. What kind of threats? Demanded Ambassador Thexlon. Species from outside this galaxy that view organic life as a resource to be harvested. Ancient automated systems that are beginning to reactivate after millions of years of dormancy. Dimensional incursions from realities where the laws of physics operate differently. The chamber erupted in concerned murmurs as delegates processed the implications of these revelations. They had gathered expecting to address the political ramifications of a single naval engagement. Instead, they were learning about threats that could endanger every civilization in the galaxy. Captain, High Chancellor Vexterra said formally. What exactly are you proposing? Chen gestured, and a new holographic display appeared, showing a complex organizational structure. The Guardian Corps is prepared to share certain defensive technologies with qualified civilizations, establish joint training programs for dealing with exotic threats, and coordinate a galaxy-wide early warning system. In exchange for what? War Master Vexthran's question carried the suspicion of a warrior who had learned to distrust generous offers. Nothing, Chen replied simply. Our mission is the protection of innocent life throughout the galaxy. We ask for nothing beyond the cessation of aggressive expansion policies and cooperation in maintaining galactic peace. The simplicity of the statement created more confusion than any complex demand would have. Species accustomed to political maneuvering and hidden agendas struggled to process an offer that appeared to have no ulterior motive. Dr. Martinez activated another display showing detailed technical schematics. We're prepared to share defensive shield technologies that will make worlds immune to conventional weapons, early warning sensors that can detect threats from other dimensions, and medical technologies that can extend the lifespans of most species by several centuries. The only requirements, Chen added, are that these technologies never be used for aggressive purposes and that receiving civilizations agree to assist in the defense of other worlds when called upon. The debate that followed lasted for 18 hours and involved every major philosophical and practical question that the galaxy's finest minds could devise. But in the end, the choice was simple. Accept humanity's offer of protection and advanced technology, or face the unknown threats that were approaching without their assistance. The vote was unanimous. 3 weeks later, Captain Chen stood on the observation deck of the Retribution, watching as the first Guardian Corps training facility was established on a previously uninhabited world. Ships from dozens of species were arriving daily, bringing their finest officers to learn about technologies and threats that would have seemed like fantasy months earlier. Captain, Commander Mills approached with a datapad in her hands. We're receiving reports from Guardian outposts throughout the galaxy. The early warning network is detecting the first signs of extragalactic contact. Chen nodded gravely. The real test of the galaxy's new alliance was approaching faster than anyone had anticipated. Signal all Guardian vessels, he ordered. Implement Protocol 7 and prepare for extended operations. The age of hidden guardianship is ending. From now on, we stand watch in the light. The Retribution had emerged from legend to save a single system from conquest. But its arrival had announced something far greater. The beginning of an era when the galaxy's civilizations would stand united against threats that no single species could face alone. Humanity's secret guardians had finally come home from the deep dark, and they had brought with them the tools to forge a future where peace was protected not by the threat of superior force, but by the shared commitment to defend all innocent life. The legendary warship had become the cornerstone of a new galactic order, one built on cooperation, protection, and the hard-won wisdom that came from traveling the darkest reaches of space in service to the light.